Hello everybody, it's Sarah and today I am finally here with my review for Lady Hotspur by Tessa Gratton. This review is going to be spoiler free as always because I don't really have that much to say that would be spoilery, and yeah, let me just dive right into it and share all my thoughts on this book with you. First of all, a little summary of this book. This book is kind of a sequel to Queens of Inishlia, also by Tessa Gratton, although the two of them are not too much connected. Basically, Lady Hotspur is just set in the same world about 150 years, I think, after the Queens of Inishlia. And the second thing the two books have in common is that Lady Hotspur is also a Shakespearean retelling, but where Queens of Inishlia was a retelling of King Lear, Lady Hotspur is a retelling of Henry IV. I think it's Henry IV. For those of you who want to know a bit more about this book than just saying that it's based on Henry IV, in this book we follow three women and it is set after the old king of a country has just been killed. One of those women is the former prince of the country, the former heir to the throne, who now of course finds herself without a throne and kind of also without a home. The second woman is the new prince of the country, the new heir to the throne. She is the daughter of the woman who took the throne. And the third woman is a soldier, Lady Hotspur, who is caught between the two princes and kind of has her loyalties divided. Okay, now onto my review. The first thing I want to clear up is whether or not you're going to have to read Queens of Inishlia before you pick up Lady Hotspur. And my answer kind of is yes and no. No, because I do not think that you absolutely have to read Queens of Inishlia to understand Lady Hotspur. However, I do think that you'll get more out of your reading experience if you have read Queens of Inishlia first, so I would recommend it because there are some characters that are repeatedly mentioned in Lady Hotspur and it is kind of explained who they are, but the story of those characters is the story of Queens of Inishlia, so like if you read that book you just have the whole story and not just the mentions that appear in this book. So next I want to get into the negative points because I always want to end with the positive stuff, and the first thing I wrote down is that sometimes, although I only really noticed it once or twice, sometimes Tessa Gratton kind of slips into modern language, even though this is kind of, the setting is, let's say, I think 15th century France and Great Britain, so it's quite an old-timey setting and most of the time the language does reflect that. However, once one of the princes calls her mother mom, and that just, you know, kind of took me out. I do not think that back then people called their parents mom. So yeah, that's something that you have to keep in mind. However, as I said, I only noticed it once or twice. And then the second thing that's like a big negative just for me is that one of the three main characters I really didn't like. And like in Queens of Inishlia, most of the main characters also weren't exactly likable characters. And I also did not think that most of the characters in this book were likable characters. However, in Queens of Inishlia, I was still mostly really interested in the characters, and that didn't happen as much in this book, sadly. So overall, I did give this like half a star less than Queens of Inishlia. I only gave it 4 stars in total. I still really enjoyed it though. I still really loved it, but that's just something to be aware of. If you need characters that you can kind of get into to read a book, just maybe this isn't the book for you. And then also in general, this book, before you get into it, be aware what this book is. I think one of the main reasons why this book and also why Queens of Inishlia, why they got a lot of bad reviews, is that a lot of people didn't know what they were getting into with both of those books, and so they were disappointed by the books. And that's also the next part that I want to talk about, which isn't positive or negative. For me personally, it's positive. I really enjoyed it because I didn't really expect anything going into the first book, and I knew what I was getting into with the second book. And so that's kind of what I'm going to talk about right now. And that is that these books are very much retellings of Shakespearean plays. So if you want a fast-paced, action-packed, epic, high fantasy, these books are not for you. They are very slow-paced. This book only picks up about 2/3 into the story. Up until then, it's very slow, so like kind of like plays. Plays often also only pick up at the very end of the story and kind of get into the action at the very end. And then also Lady Hotspur and also Queens of Inishlia, they have a very peculiar writing style. And I don't know how else to describe it except that they are written like plays but in novel form. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times you're just thrown right into the scene. There's not really any build-up, what's going on or anything. You're straight up in the scene, and then the scene cuts and it moves on to the next scene, and there isn't really anything in between those scenes. So sometimes you just have to kind of gather what's going on by the clues surrounding the story, and the story isn't really telling you what's going on right now, or why this person is here right now, or why they're doing that right now, and so on. So be aware of that. And I absolutely love this writing style. I thought it was very different from anything I have ever read before, like when I read Queens of Inishlia. But I can also see why you'd be disappointed if that's not what you expect from this book and what you want from this book. So as I said, just be aware what this book is. It's also, again, a very character-focused story and not really that much about the plot. I think Shakespeare in general is like that as well, where it's more about the decisions of the characters rather than what's happening around them, but also kind of how the stuff that's happening around them like changes their decisions, and how the decision of other characters influence the decisions of the main characters, and so on. And yeah, that's something that I really enjoyed. These books are very much character studies, but you just gotta like that if you want to read those books. But again, since this is a kind of a character study and I did not like the characters in this book as much as I did, or I wasn't interested in the characters as much as I was in Queens of Inishlia, I like this a little bit less. So the things that I talked about right now, about the writing, about the way the story is written, are things that I highly enjoy. But again, I didn't want to put it in the kind of positive stuff, because I know those are things that some people just really do not like. So now going on to the definitely positive stuff. First of all, even though I did not like 2 of the 3 main characters, and I liked the last main character less and less towards the end, there were 2 characters that I absolutely loved and that made this book absolutely worth it. Rowan and Con are both so amazing. Funnily 2 male characters, even though this is like a very female-centered story, and I absolutely loved them. They were so adorable and babies, and just I love them. Rowan did have some questionable decisions, but well, I don't care. I love him enough. Then the second thing I really enjoyed when it came to this book was the way gender and sexuality was handled. First, concerning gender, there wasn't really, as far as I noticed, any discrimination towards women in like any way. And I really loved that. First of all, like, you had 2 women who had the title Prince, which I absolutely loved. For some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason I really enjoyed that. Then there were a bunch of really strong queens. There wasn't really any difference in gender at all. You had women that were soldiers, and it wasn't like something outstanding that, oh my god, this woman is just as good as a man with a sword or anything along those lines. But just the women were soldiers, and deal with it. It's normal in that world, and like Lady Hotspur is a commander, and it's completely normal, and her troops love her, and no one sees anything weird with that. Or like, there were still differences made in like different cultures, but the one person who had something to say about Hotspur being a commander like never appeared again after that, so it wasn't really a big deal. But when it came to the main cultures and the main countries that appeared in this book, that definitely was very, very well done. And then also, as far as sexuality goes, this is a sapphic book, so the main romance, or one of the main romances in this book, is sapphic. It's between Prince Hal and Lady Hotspur, which isn't a spoiler since it's like from the very beginning of the book. But yeah, I also really love that relationship, because while there were conflicts surrounding that relationship, the conflicts were never surrounding the sexuality, or like not surrounding the fact that being sapphic is anything wrong or anything along those lines. But the problem that was talked about was just that Prince Hel is heir to a throne that still needs stabilization, so there has to be another heir after Hel. So she has to have a male consort, husband, someone she can make children with, basically. And that's the problem, and not the fact that she's a lesbian, and that is what I really, really enjoyed. Like, I enjoy having conflict surrounding relationships, but that conflict not being the sexuality, or not mainly being the sexuality. And yeah, the last thing, because I have to talk about the ending at the very end, and I'm still not sure how I feel about the ending, to be honest. My first reaction towards the ending was, fuck no, I hate this ending. And then I was like, actually, I kind of like it. It kind of makes sense now. So yeah, I'm still not sure what I feel about the ending. With that said, that was it for my review for Lady Hotspur. Tell me in the comments down below if you have read this book and what your thoughts were on it, or if you plan on picking up Lady Hotspur or even Queens of Innisfleer. If you enjoyed this video, please maybe think about giving me a thumbs up and also maybe subscribing. All the links to my social media are in the description box down below, so go and check those out, and I hope I'll see you soon. Bye!